Welcome to the next big thing, the 2469 Community Podcast. Joining us today, we have Jamil Shinawi, co-founder and CEO of AHOY, Karim Helal, co-founder and CEO of ProTenders, Inc., Kevin Czok, co-founder of Hotel Data Cloud, and Kayode Odeleye, co-founder and CEO of CAENA.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, gents.
Yeah, well, this is the next big thing, and we're here to talk about the ecosystem today. So you all are in different capacities, different visions for the ecosystem, different contributions. I know you've done both sides.
Bit of everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Come full circle now.
And I think actually all of us kind of did as well. So we both like entrepreneurs, but then we advised, we mentored, we invest, all those different hats. But even within our startups, we kind of even did a lot of stuff, you know. One day you're a DIY lawyer, right?
Every day.
Another day you're an accountant.
Entrepreneurship, baby.
Yeah, indeed.
Not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah, I mean, we in the community in 2469, we always are ranting and bitching about how the ecosystem is basically, and
We're not ranting. We're saying the way it is. We're not. We're cutting out the PR and actually saying the way it actually is. It's quite different.
yeah, it's not what media shows it to be.
We're showing
Unfortunately,
the reality of it from the point of view of entrepreneurs, which is one you don't see very often.
and unfortunately, a sign of lack of maturity to the whole ecosystem is the fact that we don't have honest reporting by the tech media, which in their own return are also startups.
There's a tech media here.
Well,
Which one?
Good question.
yeah, there is a huge lack of honesty, and I mean, even if you look at governments are telling people, you know, feedback is a way to actually improve services, and we don't find that actually in within the ecosystem that, you know, as tech, even especially tech companies, we thrive on feedback, right? It's how we build our products. It's A/B testing mode the whole time almost.
But I'd argue we don't find feedback as publicly. There's very few public forums for feedback, and you don't share this publicly. And like you said, in the media, we don't find public feedback. But there are one-on-one feedback directions for sure, in forums and venues. It's just not. It's often behind closed doors. It's invite only. It's kind of the tighter knit part of the community and the ecosystem, which I think, especially for new entrepreneurs and people who come here new, they don't see that. They don't hear that. They don't get listened to or aren't part of those kind of closed door conversations.
So I've been in this ecosystem for 15 years. I've never been invited to a closed door event to share my. Actually, I've been invited once.
I was going to say, didn't you mention recently in Abu Dhabi
once.
there was something?
But then I was like, yeah, thank you. But that's it.
We're doing them every Friday now, so
Sorry?
we're doing them every Friday now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
But okay, if we mention the V word, VCs basically,
Yeah.
they actually provide you zero feedback. If you noticed, like here, there is no constructive criticism whatsoever, and then they just go to their Rolodex of excuses and just pick a random one. You know, it's not the right time for us. You know, it's like, all right,
Come back when you're 50K MRR.
okay, what's your favorite?
My best answer.
Best VC rejection, random rejection.
It's the worst I've ever had was somebody who was on the phone for an hour while I was pitching to him, and at the end of an hour he said, "Sorry, we don't do construction tech."
Yeah, I know.
Why
who's
do
that.
something complicated when we do something simple like e-commerce?
I mean, for me, the recurring one was come back when you have $1 million recurring revenue from a seed stage investor. Where like, hey, as a SaaS company with $1 million revenue, we'd be
Yeah.
talking to very different VCs than you.
And then would come back after the million, you know?
Yeah, and
they'll
true.
tell
And then
you-
they're like, oh no, sorry, out of our stage, and we do seed investments.
Exactly.
I mean, but leaving VCs for a moment, what has been your experience with angels and syndicates?
I mean, angels are truly the only real investors in this part of the world so far. And I mean, unless you come with the right last name, the right connections, warm introductions, you won't actually get VC money. I mean, it's not about stage, because just a couple of weeks ago, we've seen a pre-seed startup raising $5 million, an evaluation that is out of all sorts of benchmarks. I know you said other than VCs, I'm back to VCs again. See? See how good? Yeah. I know, back to angels. Angels actually are quite amazing. And honestly, there are so many great angels, and some of them are, even without experience, have the, how can I say, the street smart and the wisdom to actually do it properly. And this is one of the things we're lucky to have in this part of the world. But the problem is, again, how do you get to meet them? Because, especially where we are today, we are in a very dynamic city like Dubai. And if you're not from this part of the world, and let's face it, the majority of angels come either as some expats who are in Dubai, but then the majority is also coming from neighboring countries. Mainly the biggest market in investing and in startups and startup business is Saudi Arabia. So it requires a lot of networking effort, and they don't mind investing and believing, and it's been going on since the 60s and 70s actually. So although it wasn't happening in Saudi, it was happening overseas. So a lot of Silicon Valley startups in the 70s actually has received, you hear, I know a few guys, veterans today probably, they actually helped bring back Steve Jobs to Apple.
Very interesting.
They actually put their money to do that. So when you have that kind of culture to investing, forget startups, forget tech. Talking about business, it's all about people.
But see, this is where the next big thing is going to happen, as far as I'm concerned, is what Saudi's done is they've taken the experience they've built over the last 20, 30, 40 years investing in tech, inside. Yeah. Right? And so while what used to be distributed across the world before, again, of course, mostly in the US, is now happening within Saudi. So as long as I've been going for the past 9 months in Saudi, you see the amount of activity, the ambition, the amount of business deals happening at a very rapid pace. And it's all the people that were doing it outside, that are not doing it internally. Right? And that's creating a lot of pressure for neighboring countries like the UAE to start also ramping up their activities into investing locally. So something like what Saudi has done is going to be potentially the spark that actually helps also build here a better ecosystem.
The UAE has always been a great, the market isn't that big, so it's not like Egypt and Saudi, but it's always been a great stage to sell regionally. Of course, when Saudi is increasing its supply, then that kind of is with the competitive angle that you're talking about market-wise.
Yeah, but we're talking about market. We're talking about funding. About
yeah, I'm relating it to that basically. Okay. So funding-wise, yeah, they're doing it internally, but with all due respect, the Saudi ecosystem, although it is actually showing amazing signs of coming along, on the entrepreneurship side, although there are great examples, but it's not showing the sophistication it needs to.
But it's not supposed to.
It's early days.
It's phase one. They're in stage one, which is seed, help them grow, help them set up. Most of them will fail, but at least you have the ecosystem that it's being set up properly. And because government is pushing it so aggressively, I see a lot more angels also going in and investing also, because if government is doing it, we should do it too.
But let's see, with ecosystem, it's early days, and we're seeing good
100%.
efforts. But we've seen lots of ecosystems around the globe that have good initial traction, and all of a sudden, with the lack of success, the studios disappear, the seed funds disappear. Most of the funds are vintage funds in Saudi. They've deployed 2, 3, 4, 5 investments so far. Let's see how that continues over the years. It's a lot can happen over the next years. I think it's way too early to tell. But yes, agreed, it does increase the pressure, of course, on the UAE to perform and keep up its standard. We're a much older ecosystem, still nascent, I'd say. I moved here 6 years ago. When I came here, it felt a lot like what was happening in Berlin about 10 years ago. Okay, now it's 10 years from when I moved here. So like 2007, 2008. Berlin was really small. London was bigger. So London dominated. Rocket Internet was just starting to get traction. And all of a sudden, with a couple of successful exits, we saw VC increase, we saw deals increase, we saw startups increase in terms of volume and numbers. And we've seen this happen over the past 6 years here as well. With a lot of frustration, with a lot of misfortunes, but with success stories as well, with a couple of exits. We're seeing people move from corporate careers into entrepreneurship. We're seeing angels who typically do real estate, who did other alternative assets, suddenly say like, hey, why not do a couple of startup investments, tech investments, not just invest in the barbershop or the restaurant next door, but actually do something where I might lose all my money. It's not going to be a steady return. I'm putting it all on one guy or a team of founders, but let's see where this goes.
But in terms of the angels, are you talking about here in the UAE?
Here in the UAE. And it's not like here. I've with my startup we raised from angels, and it's a different kind of hustle. You typically don't find you have a couple of angel funds, you have a couple of directories, but there's a ton of angels who do 1 or 2 investments through their network, through people they personally know or trust, by referral. It's really hard to come by, and it doesn't have to do with how long you've been here necessarily. It's a lot about how you network and who you meet and how you put yourself out there, and. Several of our angels, we would have never come by at any startup event. We went to startup events to meet the people who introduced us to those angels. But those angels, you wouldn't find them in any directory on AngelList or Crunchbase or anything like that. We actually struggled to convince them to appear in any media. We had one publication that wanted a quote from one of the angels just to verify that the investment actually happened. And one of them agreed. The others were like, yeah, nope, keep my name out of this.
Yeah, I mean, by definition, I don't think angel investors also should
Be prominent.
Exactly.
Be that public, yeah.
Yeah, it takes away. An angel investor enjoys their anonymity in a way because
it's not their profession to invest. It's something that they do
exactly
out of passion, maybe.
Yeah.
But
and I haven't seen good angel activity, honestly, here in the UAE. Genuinely speaking, I mean, even smaller markets have better angel activity. I'm talking about people who reside in the UAE. There are people who have day jobs and trying to invest as angels, and they're doing a good job, but they're not that many, and they're very hard to identify. And especially because we just mentioned, angels do enjoy their anonymity because you don't want to be conflicted with your workplace, for example. You don't want to be conflicted with your other business dealings. The fact is, if knowing that angel and actually getting an investment from them usually happens through other entrepreneurs talking about each other. And even when it comes to entrepreneurs, they are not networking properly in many of the ecosystems around the region. And in my opinion, we shouldn't have ecosystems. My opinion should be just one. And because tech and good ideas should supersede borders. But then, of course, you have tax issues and stuff like that create those borders. You got business models that are geography specific sometimes, right? So these are basically the things that create these different borders. But me personally, I don't like to go into stuff that are geography specific or cannot be replicated. And I think that the real test for, especially we're talking about the Saudi ecosystem, is what could scale outside of Saudi. I mean, Saudi is a good market again, but it is finite. I mean, you got 30 million people. So how do you fare overseas? Just next door. And very few have fared well. And this is, I think, the biggest challenge. And
it's not a regional challenge only. We perceive it as something regional because a lot of entrepreneurs come and think the countries are similar. We have the GCC, we share a lot of cultural values, and each country has some expat dynamic. But it's something that, aside from the US and big markets like China, most countries are too small to build a venture successfully in one single country. And we've seen that in Europe, we've seen that in LATAM, where very quickly you have to scale outside of the region.
Yeah, but
that's something that I feel like we here in the Middle East feel a pressure imposed on ourselves that we feel is unique, but it's not. It's something that entrepreneurs face worldwide if they're not in the valley.
So I think it's a different discussion. I think that if you look at most of the entrepreneurs that are getting funded here, and getting anywhere as the people that are copying stuff that happened in the US and applying it to the Middle East. That's all the success stories that we've had so far have been copycats. And because that's only the one that get money from investors, first of all, because it's they're perceived as being less risky as going and creating something new. Whereas if you look at Israel, which is the complete opposite, they typically invest a lot more into innovation-based companies on the condition that they actually go and start from day one become global. So whether it's Monday.com or whatever else that came out of Israel, they're from day one global. But they're innovation-based, they're product-driven, they're not something which they're not specifically tied to a region. And that's where you have to get into. You have to get into how do you create an innovation ecosystem that doesn't think just about regionally, because that's where you're being pegged into, right? Because you can't get funding otherwise.
So, but is it an innovation system, an ecosystem, or the entrepreneurs? I mean, I like your example of Monday.com or maybe my favorite business, Canva.
Yeah.
Seated in Australia, small country, but then it's global. So what is it the way of thinking of the entrepreneurs, or is it the ecosystem that drives that thinking?
So I've been in this ecosystem for 15 years. I've mentored, I think, at least 100 to 120 companies, if not more, right? Probably a lot more on this. All the ones that I've seen that were innovative, that were actually cool products, way ahead of their time, they didn't go anywhere. They couldn't get a penny in funding. They had to either leave the country, go somewhere else, or shut down. So it's not that we don't have entrepreneurs thinking about innovation and actually have cool ideas, that they just die.
We actually have been losing a lot of good skilled people and talent and ideas to markets like the US.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, maybe the way I see it, comparing the ecosystem here to maybe what exists in the UK as well, is it's not much worse than.
Yeah, but why do you compare to the UK, man?
Because
like nobody thinks tech thinks UK.
Yeah, because the UK is probably the second largest. I mean, like you were saying, maybe Berlin is behind. And you look at it, every single market is light years behind the US. Yeah. So, I mean,
the US is a very unique market.
But
we see entrepreneurs move there who are successful because those are the stories we hear about. But for every entrepreneur who moved there and was successful, there's 10 who struggled. And I've seen this happen from entrepreneurs moving from Germany as well, who had the same issue that they face here, struggled to raise funding, thought, oh, look at what's happening in Silicon Valley, underestimating how much in Silicon Valley is based on connections on WhatsApp.
Of course.
And you don't just move there and raise money the next day without connection.
But it's not just that, man. I mean, I've been to San Francisco a lot of times, and the amount you cannot go into any coffee shop, bar, restaurant, mall, and not meet 50 other entrepreneurs that are trying to do the same thing. So yeah, you might fail 100%, but your level of competence, education, I've never felt as stupid as I do in the US, as in Silicon Valley, and that makes you want to work harder. Push more, be more innovative, whatever it takes to become successful.
That's Silicon Valley today. 20 years ago, Silicon Valley,
15 years ago.
But 15 years ago?
15 years ago,
I mean, even other parts of the US are still catching up with Silicon Valley. Like
exactly.
if you look, we have our friends in Buffalo, and some of them actually wrote a book about this, the Startup Community Way. Amazing book, actually. And I mean, it's all about the meetups, the community, the coffee shops, and it's all about that because you need a culture of not just innovation, but also failure acceptance, people who are enterprising, and entrepreneurs that actually succeed and invest in other entrepreneurs.
What you need is what happened, which is one success story, which was the initial one that happened in the 70s, which ended up resulting in 10 more, out of which maybe 2 companies succeeded, out of which a few more. It takes a few cycles. The problem is here, the cycles don't happen.
I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons why it's not happening. And so if you look at the success stories, they are, if you consider value chain, where you have really upstream and really downstream. The upstream are the origins of things. So you have something that is the foundation of other things. So in the US, Silicon Valley, they started with upstream. It's a natural, logical, organic start. And then they actually went and built other stuff. But we copied only.
Yeah.
So, and this is why whenever you speak to a venture capital fund, again, with the venture capital funds, the biggest issue is, in their mind, you cannot exceed Karim's exit because it's the record. That's it. They benchmark you. So they look to make X return, which they're not making
Not
anyway.
making whatsoever.
Exactly, which is kind of funny. But then they're telling you, okay, this is the glass ceiling. You're starting here. You come with something very innovative. They see the market, they see the potential, they see the traction, but still they don't like your valuation. And you are like 40% or 50% of what you could get in, the North American market.
Yeah, but see, this is where I get really annoyed. Yeah, is because if I ask you what Dubai is, what do you think of first?
Tourism, bling.
Finance, banking.
Melting
Buildings.
pot as well.
40 years ago, Dubai was a desert. There was nothing there. I grew up here, so I know there was nothing out there. People come here because they want to see the Burj Khalifa, the Palm, the whatever else it is. Since when has Dubai limited itself by what bankers think it should do? If banker ruled Dubai, you'd have a building that's one level higher than the one before. That would never attract people. Dubai is what it is because they took bold chances. It built Burj Khalifa when everybody thought it was crazy. It built the Palm when everybody think they were crazy, and it wasn't being diminished by what the banker thought it should do.
I mean, look, one of the things that I really like is how they bring the story of Al-Abbar.
Yeah.
And how he speaks about his failure and how many years
100%.
he failed. And then when he became 30-something, he actually had a breakthrough with MR. And I kind of respect that a lot. And we don't speak enough about our failures, I guess, as well, all of us. Even we do, but people aren't very comfortable with that. And it kind of shuns away people who want to invest because they're not investing for the right reasons as well.
But okay, so the question I keep I'm back and asking is, who's the region's Al-Abbar for tech? Who's the person that can actually break that ceiling and let all these bankers and all these consultants?
It takes a village.
It takes one person.
No,
It takes one person
disagree,
to break that
honestly.
ceiling and to start funding companies that are potentially
one person could be the example.
Outside of Silicon Valley, who are the tech giants for London, for Berlin, which are successful
The
ecosystems?
Skype guys, for instance, they've kind of spawned several generations. There's Norscan. Norscan is from which country?
But sorry, why are we comparing ourselves to others? I'm sorry.
No, but I'm asking because does
but
it really take this
but I
one
think
big person?
But Karim, I think it proves your point
Which is
that it takes one person. I've seen where so the Skype guys,
The Skype guys, they're Estonia.
yeah.
Estonia. So for
But
example,
does any one of us think of Estonia as, that's a startup
it is.
hotspot?
It actually
is.
has per capita. It actually one of the best in the world.
Agreed, but we're entrepreneurs. But ask any random citizen, hey, what do you think of Estonia?
But I
They
still
won't
think,
say
I
tech.
still think that works because the success of just one company, the Skype guys and all that, has actually spawned several generations, like
Absolutely.
1%.
But that's what I'm saying. It doesn't take somebody who every random citizen thinks of. This is somebody like Al-Abbar, like a big name.
don't care, but
it takes success stories, several.
So
But
again,
they don't need to be unicorns necessarily.
you're stuck in a position today where VC is stuck. I'm sorry to say very bluntly. They are extremely risk averse. They don't invest in anything else. They are full of bankers that know nothing about building startups. I've already been told that a coffee shop is the same as a startup. There's no difference between them. So I don't have much faith in the local VCs bringing that change because they're not going to change. They've shown multiple times that they will rather invest in whatever is sexy today than taking any kind of steps to try and change things, right? So they're not going to change the status quo. So somebody has to come in, has the balls to actually invest in things that are a bit more risky. That, yes, are probably going to be, you're going to lose some, but some of them, of these things that you invest in, might become bigger stories. And that's what you need.
So the risk is not just in idea. That's number one. So the risk is also in using your own judgment. And nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to devise a standardized method of replicating good results, which, if you read 0 to 1, the first page says exactly the opposite of that. That's Peter Thiel, okay? Peter Thiel knows a thing or two actually about investing, the least to say. So when we have to be management consultants, because the guys from Karim, one of them was, when we have to be
they both were.
I'm sorry. Yeah, when we have to be Amazon because somewhat. Just because you got accepted by HR to work in Amazon, you got touched by greatness. That's BS. Amazon is a great company, but it doesn't mean working there makes you qualified to be an entrepreneur. And I think one of the issues in the whole ecosystem is conformity. we want to conform.
But that's VC globally.
Global, Silicon
So
Valley
that's
is
the
one.
thing. I don't
If you
agree
look
with
at who get funded,
I don't agree.
on average,
I don't
who
agree.
gets funded in Silicon Valley has either startup background, consulting background, exactly the same everywhere.
And I mean,
And
you have
to bring in the whole diversity aspect, it's changing now in Silicon Valley, and there's funds that have mandates, but on average, it's white males in their 30s who get funded,
I don't see the change yet.
and
so
that's no
it's-
different anywhere.
But we're not talking about diversity in that. We're talking about diversity of ideas.
No, but we're talking about backgrounds,
Yeah, but
educational backgrounds, professional backgrounds. Stanford, MIT increase your chance significantly of getting funded in the US. So how can we blame VCs
I mean-
locally if the ones we're talking about who are doing it right actually
Yes.
do the exact same? They
And-
follow standards. They follow.
and in the UK, it's 2 universities, Oxford and Cambridge, nobody else.
it's funny because if I look at some of the biggest stories today, which is Airbnb, Facebook, LinkedIn, or whatever else, these guys haven't necessarily been.
Didn't they all go to
Stanford.
Stanford?
They all,
I
but
think
they all
Airbnb
went to
founders
Y
all-
Combinator. So it's either Stanford or Y Combinator.
Fine, but remember the Airbnb story, right?
Yes.
Airbnb, every single investor thought they were stupid.
Yep.
Like they were.
No, it was seven angels.
No,
The story
all
is that-
the investors that they went to see thought it was the stupidest idea in the world. Why would you let somebody come to your house randomly that you don't know and let him sleep in your house? Completely ridiculous. The reason why they got invested it wasn't because they thought they were great founders or because they had great products. It's because they had shown that they had some capability of thinking outside the box. Remember the cereals?
Yes and no.
That was the cereals. That's what got them
but-
through YC.
What was it? The cereals.
The cereals
box.
is what got them
True,
through
but
YC.
what got them into YC was Mike
that?
Arrington. I believe it was Mike Arrington.
Mike
Might have
Arrington
been-
got them an
He got them-
introduction
Paul Graham.
Paul Graham.
I mean,
And when Paul Graham saw that they had come up with the cereals to fund themselves as a way, he actually got them in. So my point is, you have a bit of this interesting. It's a bit of a risk, man. You allow people to come in if you have shown some kind of a level of risk taking or thinking outside the box, or I might want to take a bet on them. And mind you, YC, it's not a committee. If one person likes you, if one person thinks you're worth it, you're in. Whereas here, it's if one person thinks you shouldn't be in, then you're out, which is very different.
I don't think YC is what it was. Although YC is
That's
great,
yeah.
and we owe YC a lot of things. I mean, so much credit is due. But listen, I believe in this in Porter's competitive place theory. It's called spillover effect and competitive place theory. So it's an economical theory that says that when you have a lot of competition and a lot of one thing in one place, you become naturally better at it as a place.
True.
I don't believe in competitive country, competitive city, or competitive anything else. It's a competitive place. Yes, it does happen. But Americans aren't better in like robotics than I don't know who, You can't make that rule. And this is the issue, that whenever I see an investor that is mandating geography, I don't get it. I mean, do you want profits or do you want me to?
Well, for them, it's legal. It's a legal perspective.
Ah,
It's
no.
a legal
So
point of view.
when it's a taxation issue, that's another thing. And trust me, there are ways to work around that. When it's a mandate by your LPs, then you're not really a proper VC for tech. You're a private equity company doing local business. You can't call yourself VC because tech is ubiquitous. Tech is global. There is difference as well between tech-enabled and tech-based. So all the investments are, well, not all, majority of the investments are actually in tech-enabled businesses.
Okay. I think another potential reason for why they probably mostly do their own country or their own base is because, contrary to some of our VCs, a lot of the good ones in the US are much more involved on a day-to-day basis with the investors, with the entrepreneurs, right? Which is why you had this rule of no farther away than an hour.
But we copied the rule, but there is genuinely no value. I mean, show me which
I know.
VC is
Here
doing
there
what
is
to
no,
what
here
startup.
there's no value. But I mean, the ones talking to the US have teams of people that help you with the pricing, strategy, sales.
The best of the best, but
Yeah,
for
of course the
for
best
all
of
of
the
those,
best.
there is a bunch of VCs that
I
provide
agree
capital,
with
not
you,
much else.
but again, we don't have the best. We don't have. All we need is one of the best here to actually help us get to that point.
okay, I mean,
Why
so-
are we basing ourselves on the average Joe Blows? We need to base ourselves on having one that takes the best practices in the US and bring him.
So, but what can founders do? I mean, there's a lot VCs can do if they decide to change, but I guess that's beyond our.
Not really in our
place
hands,
field. Yeah, exactly. But what can founders do? I mean, I'll give
Founders?
an example. Sorry?
What can founders do?
What can founders do?
Look,
For
the
instance,
one thing is it's pretty simple, and like it's hard to do actually, but it's simply explained. Grow big enough on your own merit that you can start attracting international capital from because there are plenty of funds that invest
So-
globally, but not at the seed stage.
Let's do
And to
this
get
this
beyond
way.
that seed stage, you either hustle your way through, you raise from angels. I mean, it's at the end of the day. I mean, of course, you could move somewhere where there is seed capital available from institutional funds.
Yeah.
So
other
let's
than
do
that-
this. That's your advice. Like that's what founders should do, right? Let's do this. Let's do. What do you think?
What do I think? I think that founders should go where the path is easier for them to succeed. If the path today is in Saudi, they should all go to Saudi. If it is in the US, go to the US. And different countries have better things for them going on for them. So in my case, construction tech, it makes no sense for me to be based in Dubai. I would rather be based in Saudi because there's a lot of things going on. There's more capital going on for me. Right? So you got to find the path of least resistance to what you're trying to get to. Yeah, once you're in Series B, you can get money from anywhere. But you have to get to that point.
Sure.
And to get to that point isn't as simple, man. You've seen the hustle. You spend more time fundraising than actually building a business.
I mean, for me, it's maybe I will borrow from what you guys have said earlier on. In terms of getting big, it's find a way. Forget about fundraising, build a business. It's hard to do, but I mean, I must say, I'm feeling the pain because that's what I'm doing. Stay alive, build a business, and I'll borrow that example from, say, the Canvas story again. You know, show relevance, think global, attract foreign capital.
I'm with you on that. It depends. Like disclaimer, it depends a lot on your business model. If you have a model where you need to burn lots of cash
Yes.
until you can turn it
that will never
positive,
work.
until you can reach positive unit economics, that's tricky.
Yeah.
But any business that has a sustainable path to profitability, and you might not grow as quickly, it'll take longer to grow, but if you have a sustainable path to profitability, we do actually have a market here where customers are, I would say, the lower hanging fruits than in many other mature markets. And not just on the government side. Our government actually is quite progressive when it comes to trying digital solutions, doing pilots. It's a long journey.
Really?
But
Really?
try selling to the German government.
listen,
try selling.
try selling to the UK government.
From
I'll
my
give you a very
experience-
simple
From my
example.
experience, they're amazing at doing POCs. They're amazing at doing now payable POCs because there's a new mandate. I don't see many of those things converting into actual contracts. I don't see many of them. to be frank
It's
with
not
you.
many because those kind of contracts are extremely competitive to get ultimately. And that's
there
simply
is
because of
a global issue of purchasing from startups when it comes to governments.
and big corporates as well.
One of the
I work
reasons
for one now.
one of the reasons why the Saudi market is attractive is because actually the government actually has changed that completely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Interesting.
you get an advantage as a
course.
startup.
But that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
If
It's
you're trying
like-
to build a local ecosystem, you have them on both sides. One, which is the funding side, and two is the revenue side.
I mean, it's like I've seen this job ad, and it was for a local company in a GCC country, and they wanted an LLM engineer that had 13 years experience. So it's like, who worked with LLMs? I mean, who developed LLMs actually before, a large language model? Who worked with that? And I mean, more than 2, 3, 5 years. That's it. I mean, it is a new field. This is the thing when you don't understand tech. It's fine and teething pains and whatever, but coming back to the realities of the ecosystem, I again hate to coin any market. The market should be global for real tech. Now, if you're a SaaS, if you're a digital enabled business, press your screen, you get a burger at your door. It's just the experience has been digitalized, not the whole business. Then yeah, you need to focus on local markets, but then you still need to fare well growing cross border. And there are taxation issues, and the Saudi market is good in its own merit, but it does have this huge handicap of having withholding tax. You can't base your business, at least legally speaking, you can't have your holding company in Saudi. I mean, it just now that might change with the new free zones that are happening, but today you just can't do that. Plus, employment cost is way higher than everywhere else. That might change as well with the free zones, but we yet to find that.
But the question for you, man, if you look at San Francisco and the area, is it cheap?
No.
Is it tax-free?
As well, no, but as well, there are things that balance that out.
There's always things that balance
Yeah.
The
out.
valley actually has lots of people fleeing from it because
Now.
of the high cost of
Now.
Yeah, Austin
over the
now.
last 2
Now.
years.
I mean, now, up until 5 years ago, people were
Or
all...
even then. That's why
People started
ecosystems like
moving to
Boulder
Austin.
started growing.
People started moving to Austin because Elon Musk moved there a few years ago because it was getting too expensive. But my point is still, you want to build a tech company, you mostly go to the Valley today.
Because
So-
the cash, I mean, the,
Well, it's
the cash
because
is
you
there,
have to
right?
make a calculation between, would you rather have 100% of $1 million?
But
And no taxes?
that goes back to the same point we spoke about before. It is worth it not because of anything except how competitive it is and how much skill is there because of the competitiveness. If I was a machine learning engineer, I'm going to go to the Bay Area because I'm going to find a job
Yep.
this way.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get better as well.
But you
because
also have
it's
capital.
competitive.
But you also have capital.
Because it's competitive.
It's a combination of all the things. So which ones comes first, chicken or egg? Does the money come first to fund all these guys, or do these guys come in, they burn their money and
No,
they die,
you
and then
need-
the capital comes after?
So
At some point, you got to have capital coming in to
you need
support
both.
these guys.
You need both.
Yeah.
You need both. And this is why at the beginning, right off the bat, I was saying entrepreneurs who exit need to invest in other entrepreneurs
100%.
Yep.
Even those that don't exist need to invest.
if they can, definitely. And if you don't have money, you still can invest your time.
Of course.
You don't have to get something in return for
100%.
that. I mean, the concept of I just want to see you doing well and not having anything in exchange of it does not exist. And it's kind of eroding, unfortunately, in the business culture for a lot of people in this part of the world, while historically, and I know this from actual people that actually have done that, when they went to Hajj, pilgrimage, they actually when they came back, the neighbor split the shop sales with them because they compete with the neighbor, for example. And actually, I personally know the gentleman who had that experience. So it's like it was split between us, but then because you traveled, now that you come back, I split the profit between us. Just give me
Okay.
my cost, and
Okay.
So that kind of noble business practice to me is opposed to let me just build very quickly a hyperscaling, blitzscaling startup that is losing money and list it and get people's money in my pocket. So there's a huge chasm between this and that, and I think the values of business are really important. Don't say that tech cannot do that. If you look at the majority of angel investors here in this part of the world, they come from real estate.
Yeah.
Am I
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean they actually understand the development life cycle in a way, although that's building this is technology, but they actually appreciate creating something, building it. The risks, they're actually very similar in a way, and that actually made them better than VCs for a lot of people. And it's not just a money game. It's not. Unfortunately, a lot of VCs do this because they want their management fee and status, probably
The
glamour. But I mean, what are the funds doing? So, being nascent and all that. I mean, I heard you, Kevin, but honestly, I don't agree. I'm sorry. Where is the money? Where is the money? If I'm investing into your fund, where is the money? Where is the return? And because the fund should ask the same question to a startup. How can you have competitiveness without liability, I mean, you find, again, we need to accept failure, but at the same time, for how long?
With VCs, we've been slamming VCs a lot. We need to remember that VCs have somebody they report to as well.
Yep.
And they have somebody they raise from as well. And the reality of raising VC is incredibly tough. It's probably even
Kevin,
harder.
Yeah, I agree with you, but that's...
I believe there is a limited amount of oxygen in this room even, okay?
Yep.
It's supply and demand. It doesn't mean you bend your will and take the wrong money. So if they did make that mistake, I mean, that's on them. But it doesn't...
No, but I'm saying, what I'm saying is VCs ultimately have to show success in order to raise the next fund.
Look at the state of the market
we
today.
had this discussion earlier about.
but again, by having all the VCs invest in the same quick delivery apps, out of which the majority will fail because they're all competing over the same small market, isn't a good way to build a strategy.
No, absolutely not. I'm not saying it's a good way. I'm saying
they're taking the copycat mentality and all investing in exactly the same thing that the other one invested in because it's a safe investment. But I mean, again, that's not the way it works.
I mean,
vary your investment thesis. Actually have a thesis. Actually have conviction in what you invest in. Not because he invests, I'm going to invest in the same thing. As a way for me to pass the IC. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
But ultimately, VCs are in the middle of the ultimate source of capital, and entrepreneurs who turn this capital into success stories. And there'll be more capital available through VCs as an intermediary for entrepreneurs if we show successes. And it's a catch-22, agreed. And you said before, what comes first, chicken or the egg?
It's very simple. I mean, it's much more simpler than this. The ecosystem, what does the ecosystem have? Media, we spoke about that.
Yeah.
You have education and culture as well. The culture that, people have, business culture, basically. You have tolerant people. I mean, technology, doing good can't come from bigotry. I mean, we spoke about this a lot, I think. And then you have, I don't think the role of government is very big, in my opinion.
It should be more.
Could be more, but
Should be more.
But the impact of government isn't that big because, I mean, disruption when it comes to tech, it does affect that a lot. But let's say government is there as also one of the stakeholders of an ecosystem. You get, of course,
research.
money.
Yeah.
And research is a big factor that is only beginning to grow slowly here.
This is as well related to government and having a good taxation system and tax back and all that stuff. It actually is there is a relationship between that. But going to the money part, whether it is, for funding research, grants, and, or funding startups, or even trade financing, or venture debt, or the framework to actually implement venture debt, which doesn't exist here. So, looking at all of this, VCs did have their chance. I mean, you can say media couldn't. I mean, maybe the talent isn't enough. Maybe, I don't know, there's a shortage of Canon cameras, but that was mean. But I mean, VCs did have their chance. I mean, how many VCs are there in the region? In the hundreds.
VCs in the region?
Yeah.
No, far
Actually
from it.
deploying regularly?
Far from it. Maybe
No.
Saudi has a
Far
lot
less.
more, but typically
Well, Saudi's in the region.
investing within the UAE, we never had more than...
No. I meant VCs.
Yeah, VCs in the
Forget
region.
investing or not. VCs.
Yeah, but most VCs are raising money, so that they're not actually deploying capital.
Yeah.
Within a specific time out frame, you have 10, 15 VCs actually invest?
That's not my point. My point is how many VCs are there?
I mean, I would say tops, the biggest top 50, 60 then.
Agreed.
No, there are fully funded VCs, at least that I know of, and I spoke to, of 160.
In
So
the
that's
region.
across the region.
Across the region, yes. 160 that I spoke to, me personally. Yeah.
And these are funds that do more than 5 deals a year?
These are funds that are raised. I've seen funds that go 3 years into their fund life cycle and haven't
Without
deployed.
deploying.
Yeah, I have seen that. Because the mandate that they have put, well, theoretically, and the thesis was basically, I don't want to blow a raspberry, but you know what I mean.
So question. So since we're here, what is the next big thing?
Next big thing is entrepreneurs disrupting, as always.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, I mean, to one of the points you made around the stakeholders, media. So media exists to shine a light on entrepreneurs' dreams and try to, I mean, once they do that, then investors won't be part of that. But the media isn't doing that because they failed. But one thing is, as founders, back to the original thing, what can founders do? It's why we're here now.
Okay.
Taking the ball into,
first
take
of
the bull
all,
by the horns and doing it.
in my opinion, if you're a founder and you find somebody who's a bigot, sexist, or any of those things, talks to you about your nationality, your religion, your passport, being located where, just stop that conversation and just don't continue. Just get away. That's it. Entrepreneurs need to talk more to each other and actually come together, support each other.
Yeah.
And not actually just backstab each other. Something I'm very familiar with, but that doesn't stop me from still reaching a hand out.
Yeah.
That is the wrong knee-jerk reaction, in my opinion. we all need to come together. I mean,
Absolutely.
forget all the labels. It does take a village, but as an entrepreneur, at least you can sympathize and and empathize with another entrepreneur. It is a very lonely journey, even if you have co-founders. So that's the other thing. If you
Question at that point,
Yeah.
if you don't mind me interrupting, do you feel a lack of empathy here, though,
definitely yes,
Yeah.
100%.
among entrepreneurs?
among the whole society, but even
Among
with-
the society, yes. But
Yes,
that's
but-
that's
I mean-
something, and maybe I can share from my experience. Okay,
Because-
it was on the VC side in Germany, but there was a huge difference, for example, between Munich and Berlin. Berlin had a amazing vibe, lots of entrepreneurs, big creative community that was closely linked to entrepreneurship. Munich, the complete opposite. You had a few solo entrepreneurs who were fighting their way on their own in a incredibly competitive environment where most people worked for big industrials or banking or finance. And it could be quite lonely in Munich as an entrepreneur. That changed over time because the small community actually became quite close-knit. And I'm seeing this happen here. Yes, it's not
the
a
socioeconomic
huge
factors.
entrepreneurial vibe, and we're not a startup city or anything like that. But I do feel like those few who are fighting the entrepreneurship game are incredibly helpful and supportive of each other.
I mean, the socioeconomic factor is such a fascinating thing because here you have the social structure that kind of supports you to start that, but then you don't get the approval. So, I mean, I would really sit down with especially local entrepreneurs in the GCC, and he says, I couldn't marry that girl that I really liked because I don't have a job.
Okay, like
And now I'm an
status.
entrepreneur, like that kind of thing. Well, in Munich or Berlin, that would be acceptable.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they kind of have a safety net not to fall. But then you'd always get those passive comments on, why don't you just get a normal job? I mean, what's wrong with you? Like what's wrong with you? So that is, I think, a discussion for another day. But coming back to what entrepreneurs can do for each other, invest, whether it's money or not, we need to invest. And we need to adopt a polarizing position as well as entrepreneurs. When something is wrong, steer away from it. I mean, even if I can get funding from the wrong fund that is wrong, I would, on principle, stay away from it. I genuinely would. I wouldn't give this advice to anybody, but this is what I would do.
Yep, agreed. I
agree.
forget who it was, but I remember reading from someone who said basically if you can't imagine enjoying a dinner with somebody, whether it's from an investor with an entrepreneur or the other direction, if you can't imagine enjoying a dinner with someone, genuinely enjoying it, when things are good, when you're considering raise an investment or invest, then imagine what that will be like when things go south,
Yeah.
when things get tough, when the
It's-
company's about to shut down, when you need help. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
when
you
somebody's
need to
looking
enjoy each
down
other's
on you.
company. You need to be on friendly terms with each other while things are good, because that relationship will eventually be put to a test. Even the biggest success stories had points where they were almost about to hit a wall, face a pandemic, whatnot. There's so much that will happen in the journey of success that you need to get along with each other incredibly well.
The funny part is, sorry, I'm just one thing on this topic. I'm reading. I like reading books or listening to podcasts about the way things are done elsewhere. One of the books I'm reading now, a great book called Zero to IPO. The guy who created it, who wrote the book, created a company called Okta. And he was basically saying how within the first couple of years, again, they had no money, whatever else, they got one of the big VCs to invest in them, and they completely failed on their sales target. And the guy went in front of the board and was fully expecting to get fired because he had completely missed the whole strategy, complete failure. He goes in front of the board, and not only did he not get fired, but the actual main investor, which is a very known investor, spent the time sitting with him, giving him the help, hints, guiding him on how to actually get better, right? So it's not so much I'm above you, below you. We're working together to make this happen, right? And this is the kind of culture you want because, again, these investors are fundamentally entrepreneurs, which made it to the other side, which we don't have enough of here.
I've experienced that here.
Huh?
I mean,
I've experienced exactly that here.
Okay, I haven't.
I mean, maybe I got lucky, but having a travel tech startup that went through the pandemic and we raised funding just before the pandemic. Imagine, I mean, if you put yourself in the shoes of our investors who saw a plan and projections in February 2020, invested in the company, and then suddenly pandemic hits. And
yeah, but it's different. That was the pandemic. That's like force majeure. it's not you completely failing on
Sure,
your
of
targets.
course. But
Like,
still,
you're
things
not
go
to blame
differently.
for
It was their personal money, angel investors.
Fine.
And I remember in summer of 21, we met with one of them. And we're like, man, I mean, we're hustling. We're trying to pivot. We're trying to recapture revenue. Travel was surging again. Things were going okay-ish, but far from what we projected. We met with the investor, and we were kind of nervous. We're like, this is going to be uncomfortable. All he cared about was, how are you guys doing personally? He was like, aren't you guys burnt out? Like,
That's nice.
That was completely
Can
unexpected.
you share his contact with the rest of us?
He's one of those who keeps a very low profile, who
Very
you would
good,
never
man.
find. But
There are
like I
gems
said, we
everywhere.
probably got lucky and could have gone completely different. And I wouldn't have blamed him because, I mean, hard-earned money. He worked for that money.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's a different definition of entrepreneurship than the mainstream one, which comes from like have come from a startup, for example. There are a lot of different types of entrepreneurs as well.
100%.
So just to round this first,
To wrap up.
just to wrap up this episode, what do you have to close with, guys? And let's keep it short.
Go ahead, Kev.
Sure. Okay. Look, I just say let's say positive. I understand the frustration, I understand the rants, and that's an important part. We need to vent. And I've now, like I said in the beginning, I've kind of come full circle. I've been on the capital side, I've been on the entrepreneur side, mentorship side, of course, and still am, and now kind of on the corporate innovation startup side. We all have our responsibilities, our duties, our hustle that we're going through, and regardless of which role we're in. At the end of the day, we're trying to build something good here. And genuinely, I believe most VCs are trying to find good startups that they'd be happy to invest in. And they'd much rather invest in something innovative than something that's just a copycat.
Okay.
Let's bear with them. Let's be patient. Let's try and kind of come together, communicate. That's the only way forward, but let's be positive. Because I do think we have good momentum here.
people in the VC. Ego, Kayode.
I mean, I will take a cue from that and say I absolutely love the community. I mean, generally, but 10 times that, the 24/6/9 community. There are just 24 hours in a day. I spend lots more of that on my business. I want to try and see what else I can do for the community and hopefully get back from it. Over the next few months, that's all I care about. And, the VCs, they can do whatever they want to do.
Karim.
So I think, listen, I've been in this ecosystem for the longest of everybody here. I've been here for 15 years doing this. And community has been something that's been up and down in the sense that people come together for events, they come up for specific things, then it disappears. I think we're at a special time now where there is for the first time a community of entrepreneurs that meets up regularly, completely outside of events, completely outside of anything else, and genuinely wants to help each other out.
Yep.
And that's something that I've never seen before in the region. So that's the first thing. The second thing that's happening is we're seeing a lot more interest from foreign VCs to come into the region. Initially, it was only because they wanted to fundraise from here, but now they're starting to see a bit more stuff happening. They're looking at potentially setting up shop here. So there is the potential that actual VCs will come in and either educate or wipe out the old ones, which I think is a good thing. 3, I do think that having pressure from the Saudi market is helping people understand the status quo is not going to happen. It has to change. So there is this good combination of entrepreneurs, of talent, of monies, not here yet, but trying to get there, and pressure and FOMO to not make it happen. So it is a good time to be an entrepreneur now. And there's a few things that are being cooked up that I think will also help quite a bit in the future.
Yeah, I mean, nobody here is sitting idle, and we're just going to close with this. And a lot of people are really in this community, which is, 24/6/9. They're really coming together to actually do things selflessly. And one of the amazing things that you see is a lot of the founders and a lot of the entrepreneurs that are here are also inviting their investors to come.
Yep.
We have a couple of VCs as well that attend, and you can see that aha moment. I think that's valuable. If we remove all the labels, I mean, I started when I was 14, and I had a very early exit. It was always about somebody believing in me, and I wanted to give that to other people. And I've invested all my exits, all of them, into other startups. I've invested in more than 400 startups. I've started in the US, I've started in the UK, I've started in Africa, I've started here as well, and all around the region, in different industries. And I've invested in all those areas as well. and the only thing that I was missing is this community, which only the members of make whole, and it's open for everybody to also join. And this is kind of the thing that actually multiplies. It does have something that is called the agglomeration effect, which basically is a multiplying, compounding effect. And every single person that joins does not only gets that, they don't only get that aha moment, but they actually also give and take in a multiple way that actually multiplies in a magnitude of the whole community and spills over against spillover effect. And I mean, just you guys dedicating the time as well, you know, today to be here to talk. I mean, that does matter as well.
I remember we started this conversation. The first time I met you, she was here a year ago, I think. And I remember I was leaving. Anyway, long story short. So when we restarted this conversation about creating this community, that was in Ramadan. We were 10 people, the first meetup, then became 15, then 20, then 30, then 100, then 200. Today we're 400 people. 400 entrepreneurs that all work in different sectors, different industries, different stages, different walks of life, different religion, different everything else. With everybody has the goal of trying to see how they can make it here and help each other out.
Although we meet in Dubai, but all of them are like from Berlin, Seoul. Some of them actually come from all around the region, Saudi, here, Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, you name it. So again, thank you everyone, and I mean, would really look forward to see you again all next Friday in the community meetup. And thank you for making the time today.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.